What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to my Week 7 NFL Power Rankings. It is good to be back. I am now done with just an epic stretch of travel and family events, so I know I haven't been able to put out quite as much content as I have advertised and what you guys have been expecting, but I'm home now. It's good to be back. Can't wait to recap Week 7. And continue on with what has been just a gift of an NFL season. We have gotten some epic action with no signs of slowing down. We're going to recap it here in this video. Please do hit that like button down below. And let's get into the power rankings this week. Starting at number 32, no surprise, the Houston Texans staying put at the spot that seemed destined for them coming into the year. They truly are not very competitive at this point. I think that sort of early season fire that they had has kind of worn off. Davis Mills, this whole thing just isn't really working, and the talent deficiency on this team is, I think, going to be a consistent theme as we move forward. At number 31, the Detroit Lions. This was the first time that they really weren't competitive, and truly, just like the Texans, we're at a talent deficiency. Jared Goff just, not playing great himself, but just not the kind of quarterback that can survive this type of situations. So clear-cut bottom two, in my opinion. And then we have the New York Jets, who were on bye this week, are going to drop down a spot because another team picked up their first win on the season. But then the New York Giants staying inside New York, dropping down 2 spots. I mean, Daniel Jones has played pretty well this year, but we saw what this team looks like now when Daniel Jones doesn't play well. 3 interceptions, a defense that has not been able to recapture their magic from last season. Patrick Graham, that luster from a surprisingly good defense last year, nowhere to be found. So also nowhere to be found is any optimism for the New York Giants, and they continue to trend down after coming back and pulling off an upset win on the Saints a couple weeks ago that seems far too removed from where we are right now for this team. Then the Miami Dolphins at number 28. If you want some sort of optimism for the Dolphins, it's that Tua actually played pretty well in this game, and that was despite an offensive line continuing to having him really run for his life. So at least there's that, and the offense looked okay, but the fact that Brian Flores' defense has regressed so much, and it honestly, man, I said it coming into the year. You take away some of those turnovers, we see it time and time again. The team that leads the league in turnovers the year before and has this quote-unquote number one defense, year after year after year, you just can't replicate those turnovers on such a consistent basis. You take those away, and you start to see some weaknesses in the defense, and I think that's what we're realizing here with the Dolphins. So a lot of work to do with this roster that I said was a bottom 5 roster in the NFL heading into the year, and a lot of those issues are showing up. They couldn't even beat the Jaguars this week. Then we have the Jaguars at number 27, jumping up 4 spots. The main thing here is Trevor Lawrence is really settling in. He still has not been perfect, but man, he looks a lot better than he did the first couple of weeks. He's tuned down those turnovers. Did lose a fumble this week, but for the most part, he is showing off the arm talent. He has been much more comfortable knowing kind of when to use his feet, when to get out of the pocket. You still can't trust this defense, but to have some element of consistency with the offense and the run game for the Jags has quietly been very good. I do think this Jags team is just a slice above the rest of these teams in the bottom tier, and congratulations to Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence picking up for their first win together. But that is going to round out the bottom tier of NFL teams as we now talk about the Washington football team. Just more of the same. This defense has nothing going for them. And yes, it was the Kansas City Chiefs, and you can certainly excuse that away, but there just hasn't been any element of excitement or consistency with this defense. And then you're just leaning on Taylor Heineke. It's more of the same. So it's been a really rough schedule for them to start. I do expect the rest of their season to look a little bit better and them to climb up a little bit, but there's just not much of a ceiling there. And it doesn't feel like at this point that this defense is going to get to that elite potential that they seemed to have coming into the year. Then the Seattle Seahawks, going to jump up a spot. They were scrappy on Sunday Night Football against the Steelers. Not going to put that much stock into it. This is a team that's still going to have a very difficult time beating teams with Geno Smith at quarterback. and they're just going to have to try and squeak out some wins, and it's unfortunate that they couldn't do that on Sunday Night Football in such a close game, because they're going to need to have a punter's chance when Russ comes back, and then we can start talking about the Seahawks as a real team again. Then the Eagles at number 24 are actually going to drop down a spot. Now, I know they technically covered against the Super Bowl champion Buccaneers on one of the more painful backdoor covers you'll ever see as a gambler. But let's be honest, man, Jalen Hurts is not playing good football. He looks like one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. And even though the scoreboard says this game was close, it never felt close at all. And it was because Jalen Hurts was inaccurate and sporadic as a passer, just not hanging in there, not taking what's there, constantly just running around and trying to make something happen. That's not how you play quarterback in the NFL. So it's just not a way for the Eagles to sustain success. Yes, it was against the Bucs, but man, that was some tough offense to watch. So they're going to drop down a spot, and the Falcons, who were on bye, are going to capitalize on that and jump up. We'll see what they look like next week, hopefully getting Ridley back and off their first week, getting Kyle Pitts going. But that's going to round out our second tier there of more competitive teams, but teams that are really not looking at playoff positioning at this point in time. Then our next tier are kind of that 7 seed. Maybe they can scrap their way into the playoffs type of teams, but also teams that just aren't very serious contenders and you wouldn't expect to make the playoffs. And that's going to start with the Chicago Bears, still playing very good defense. But let's be honest, man, this offense is not very good right now with Justin Fields in there. And it's not just Fields. Fields has to do more. But I think the play calling, the offensive line, the receivers, nobody's really stepping up right now, and it's just really, really ugly. Defensively, they're going to keep them close in games, but man, more just bad offense from the Chicago Bears this week. Then the Denver Broncos are going to drop down 6 spots. Probably were just ranked a little bit too high, honestly. I think this is much closer to who the Broncos are, a talented roster that just doesn't have the quarterback play, and honestly a defense that the last couple weeks has not played up to their potential, especially you look at that secondary, giving up some big plays. So they're going to drop down 6. They got to play better defense so that Teddy Bridgewater doesn't have to carry this load and try to win games scoring 30 points, because that's just not a formula that's going to work. Then we have the New England Patriots, a hard-fought game against the Cowboys. But again, if they're not playing elite defense, which they very clearly are not, we know they don't have an elite offense. They're just a team coached by Bill Belichick, with Mac Jones kind of trying to do what he can with Kendrick Bourne and these guys. So they're going to stay in like every game just as they have. But at the end of the day, do they have the talent to hang with any real team? It's going to be really tough. Then we have the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to jump up 2 spots, picking up their second win in a row. You know, the defense is settling in. TJ Watt has been really coming back on, which I think has been good for this defense. And offensively, they're trying to get what they can from Harris and Claypool and Deontay Johnson while shielding themselves from their own quarterback. But just like the rest of these teams, man, you're leaning on elite defense in the year 2021. And it's just really tough to consistently win football games that way. And then the Carolina Panthers, a tough team to know truly what to do with, team that came out hot, made all these trades, went and got Stephon Gilmore, who is, I think, going to be playing either next week or the week after that. That'll be cool to see for this defense. But obviously a team that capitalized on some hype and a particularly easy schedule to start, and they're much more in this middling tier. And this week it was actually the offense having to kind of pick it up, and they end up losing the coin toss, don't get to see the ball, and the defense lets them down in the end. Still a very hard-fought game against the Vikings, and I think they're still in the mix for that 7 seed, but it does seem like a bit of a long shot at this point in time. Then the Indianapolis Colts at number 17, they are making things interesting, kind of the opposite of the Panthers, where they had a very impossible schedule to start and had no hype coming off the first month of the season, but all of a sudden, they have blown out, granted, an NFL team in the Houston Texans that is not so competitive, and it is what it is, but almost beating the Ravens last week, playing about 55 minutes of really good football against a Super Bowl contending team at this point until Lamar Jackson went super sane. Carson Wentz playing really good football. They got T.Y. Hilton back this week, hoping to get Quentin Nelson back. pretty soon. The Colts are making things interesting. They're coming from behind here, but this is one of those teams that I don't think anybody's looking forward to playing right now. We're going to get a good look at them Sunday Night Football against our number 16 team here, San Francisco. Coming off the bye week, so nothing to really add there. We don't know who's going to be in there at quarterback. Another team that, their superstar tight end, George Kittle, is on IR right now. Just kind of wavering in the middle for the Niners. And, for the Colts and the Niners, both these teams are going to be pretty desperate for a win on Sunday Night Football. So even if right now it doesn't seem exciting, either of these teams could kind of get into that playoff mix if they win this game on Sunday Night Football. So I'm actually looking forward to that game. Two kind of physically minded teams with their backs against the wall here as we near the midway point in the season. But that is going to create a tier gap up to teams that are certainly more impressive and control a little bit more of their destiny as far as being true playoff teams. So the Raiders bumping up 7 spots, and it does seem that I personally had an overreaction to the Gruden deal. We'll see if that confirms to be true as the season goes on, but at the very least, this team looked similar to that team that we saw for the first month of the year that was much improved from, or much better rather than what we saw the 2 weeks leading up to the Gruden resignation. And that was a team that could push the ball downfield, Derek Carr playing really good football, and a pass rush that is surprisingly good. Max Crosby continues to just go off on the league. So the Raiders, a huge week this week, the biggest risers this week, getting 7 spots back after the Gruden news last week. They dropped double digits. Seems to have been an overreaction, and the Raiders kind of back on track and making things interesting. I'm still not all the way in on this team, but at the very least, they should be in the playoff mix here and played really good football this week. Then the Bengals bouncing back as well after the missed kick scenarios the week before, but a 4-2 football team with a quarterback playing like a top 10 or so quarterback right now. Jamar Chase looking like one of the better receivers in the NFL. This Bengals defense continues to just be solid. So that's really a formula for winning football, at least towards the middle of the league. I think the Bengals are a very legitimate, good football team. Are they a Super Bowl team this year? That's a pretty massive stretch, but certainly I would say this is about a best case scenario for the Bengals, where everything's kind of coming together the way you wanted to see here in year 3 with Zach Taylor. Then the Vikings at 13. I said it when they were 0-3 that this was not a true 0-3 football team, that they had just some traumatic losses where they were very competitive, and if one play goes the other way, this could be a 4 or even a 5-win football team right now. Their offense getting healthier. Dalvin Cook and Adam Thielen is kicking it back into gear. Kirk Cousins playing great. Darrisaw is out there now. And defensively, they've been solid the last month. So the Vikings are very much in the wild card picture. And if they keep playing like this, they could get into the division picture, as they're going to be playing the Packers a couple times coming up. Then the Saints on the bye this week, going to stay put. Now they're a week closer. It was a well-timed bye, a week closer now to getting some of these guys back. I don't know what the Michael Thomas situation is, but David Onyemata should be back. Jameis continues to play really sound football, and they're kind of a sneaky, underrated, complete football team right now. Kind of in the same breath of teams where it's like no one really wants to play them, even if no one's taking them seriously as a Super Bowl contender right now. Then the Browns dropping down 3 spots, getting blown out by the Cardinals at home. For one, the injuries are just really stacking up. These tackles not playing, Baker not playing well with the offensive line dropping off, Odell not stepping up. The defense continues to just be leaky and a problem for this team. So much potential for this Browns team. We've said that before. I would point to these injuries and say they can get back into that Super Bowl tier, but right now, with some of the losses that they've endured the last couple weeks, with how bad this defense has been and how bad Baker Mayfield has been kind of playing over the last month, they just have a lot more work to do before they're back into that top tier. And I think they can get there, but I think this is a deserved drop after a very disappointing weekend for the Cleveland Browns. Then the Tennessee Titans at number 10, going up a spot. Titans fans are going to want more credit than I'm giving them here. They pulled off the big upset on Monday Night Football. I just need to see from them more consistency. This has been a very up and down season for the Titans, and I do see them as a very matchup dependent team. And I actually did think they matched up pretty well with the Bills, where they can attack that kind of bend don't break, skinnier defensive front for the Bills. And it was a Derrick Henry game in primetime football at home, and they just kind of dominated the line of scrimmage and snuck out with a win. I need to see them do this more consistently before I put them in the Super Bowl tier, but I will put them at the top of the playoff contending tier, and certainly a team that can play spoiler like this. But do I see the Titans winning a Super Bowl with how they're playing this year and how bad their defense continues to be? It's just Harold Landry and nobody else right now, and I guess Jeffrey Simmons deserves credit too. But man, the Titans still have a lot of proving to do, and I don't want to have a pessimistic note here. I just kind of know what's coming from Titans fans that have been very loud over the last couple of years. But regardless, a huge statement win to kind of put the Titans back into the take us serious conversation. But that is going to take us into the very serious Super Bowl contending tier that I still have as a top 9 in the NFL. I think we're learning a little bit more about this group, but still very difficult to separate these guys. So the Chargers at number 9. Chargers fans were very mad at me last week when I didn't rank them above the Chiefs, and I said that there's just some stuff about this team that I'm pumping the brakes on a little bit. The pass protection from the right side, to me, worrisome. The run defense, certainly worrisome. And this team is still young. New coach, new young quarterback. I still think this team is a Super Bowl contender with a ton of talent and can obviously beat anybody on any given Sunday. But there's just some inconsistencies on this team that I need to see a little more from. So they are going to drop down 2 spots. Definitely a disappointing loss. Kind of just getting steamrolled by the Baltimore Ravens run game this week. Then the Dallas Cowboys at number 8. Finally an opportunity for them to climb up. Cowboys fans starting to get a little bit impatient here, but a +2 for them. I still want to see them with some more serious competition. I know they beat the Chargers, but I do think that was an incredibly favorable matchup for that team. Just as we saw this week, the Chargers do really struggle against the run, and the Cowboys run the ball about as good as anybody. But that said, Dak playing out of his mind, and a great just team win against the New England Patriots this week, but also, a leaky defense, and that is worrisome. So ultimately, the Cowboys are a very complete team, and I think they've earned these 2 points. And Cowboys fans will just have to let me know what you think of this 8th ranked spot, because I know that Cowboys hype is off the train right now. But then we have the Ravens at number 7, their most complete win on this season. It didn't take any Lamar dramatic moments. This was really just kind of a run the ball, play defense week for the Ravens, which we know this team is very comfortable with. So it's good to see them kind of have this in the bag where they can come out and have this complete team win. And we know they have have Lamar put the team on his back. Nothing's working, and it's not going to matter. Lamar is going to make stuff happen for us anyway. It's good to know they have both of those things in their tool belt, and that's enough to climb up 2 spots here for the Ravens. I'm going to keep the Chiefs here at number 6, looking a lot more like themselves. Yes, against the Washington football team, but this is still the best offense in football. They're putting some things back together defensively. I do believe that. They got Juan Thornhill out there instead of Sorensen. It's a nice step in the right direction. They don't need to be great defensively. They just need to kind of take a little bit better care of the football and play a little bit more sound defensively. And the Chiefs will be right back at the top of these rankings. But just kind of taking care of business against a team that they should have beat convincingly. So not a whole lot of change as far as how I feel about the Chiefs, but still good to see them come out and get a blowout win. But then the Packers at number 5, they don't have these flashy big wins, but they are 5-1, and they're surviving despite missing some of these superstar players, just kind of riding that line, which is a very high line until these guys get back. And we're talking about superstar players, David Bakhtiari, Jair Alexander, Zadarius Smith. People are hesitant on the Green Bay Packers right now, but look at this team. I mean, they run the ball about as good as anybody. Rodgers is still playing at an incredibly high level, even if not an MVP level. And then a defense that people want to focus on that week 1 loss against the Saints, but you move past week 1, which was the first week with a new defensive coordinator against a Sean Payton coached offense. And all of a sudden, this defense is actually playing really good football. Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, those guys do not get enough credit for what they do up front. And the secondaries played pretty good football, Kevin King included. So the Packers are an incredibly well-rounded team that I think is only just getting started. Then we have the Buffalo Bills. I am going to drop them down a spot. I'm not really worried about the Bills. I still have them as the number 1 team in the AFC, and I do think it was an unfavorable matchup for them. Coming off that Chiefs game, kind of a trap week, if you will, especially against a Titans team that just from a matchups perspective did match up really well with the Bills as a team that plays that kind of modern, bend, don't break, invite you to run style defense. And the Titans said, okay, we'll run it for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. And ultimately they were, a QB sneak away from probably winning that game. But I will say the LA Rams are going to jump above them because I do think the Rams are just so well balanced. I don't think their offense is much behind the Bills, if at all. I mean, they're just incredibly coached on that side of the ball. They can run the ball. They can hit you deep. They're just their play calling is so spectacular. I'd probably take the Bills offense ahead of the Rams in a slight, nod, but that Rams defense with those playmakers and how well coached they are on that side of the ball, I do think they're more well-rounded, and I would give them the nod there. So very tight there. You could list those guys 3 or 4, and I really wouldn't debate you on it. I just would take the Rams over the Bills. And then the Cardinals at number 2. It's really unfortunate that they play in a league where this version of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers exist, because the Cards are having an incredible season. They're the only undefeated team in football right now. And, it's not even that big of a surprise that the offense is playing as well as they are, because you have Kyler, who had this type of MVP season in him to kind of have that sort of elite breakout, which I think he is having with these playmakers. But the fact that this defense continues to play as well as they have, that might be the more pleasant surprise. So they're right there with any of these teams. They're, of course, ranked above most of them, but I can't put them above the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that are 5-1. Their 1 loss is in LA against the Rams, a game that I picked them to lose anyway. And this offense is historically unstoppable. Not so much they might ultimately end up putting up some of the best numbers ever, but to look at a team that can beat you in literally every single way, their offensive line is dominant, run game and in pass protection. Tom Brady is playing the best football he's potentially ever played. And then this receiving core, it's just unfair that Antonio Brown is prime Antonio Brown again, because you can take Antonio Brown off this team and they're still probably a top 3 receiving core in the NFL. You put him on it and it's the most uncoverable group of receivers we've probably ever seen. So this offense is just incredible. They laid off the gas against the Eagles. They could have put up 50 if they wanted to. They were really having anything they wanted. And this defense is banged up, but it's not like pieces that will be out the rest of the year. They got Jamel Dean back this week. He made some plays. This team is stupid, man. It's going to take them having a bad week in the playoffs for someone to beat them. So they are still the best team in football to me. And there's the Week 7 NFL Power Rankings. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments down below what you think, where you agree, where you disagree. Make sure you guys subscribe as well. We'll be back with the Fully Inflated Football podcast tomorrow for our Week 6 recap. Studs and Duds coming back this week. Lots of great content ahead, so make sure you guys subscribe, and we'll see you for the next one. Peace out.